欢迎收听可持续对话。今天的这期节目是我们的第2期英文访谈播客。我非常开心地邀请到了好朋友，一位对中国有着深厚情感的建筑师 Hisham Youssef。他出生在埃及开罗，先后就读于哈佛大学和哥伦比亚大学，职业生涯横跨了纽约、东京、迪拜和上海，参与过东京国际论坛、上海国际金融中心等世界级项目。如今，他在苏州大学建筑学院任教，把可持续建筑的理念带给新一代学生。Hisham 在中国生活多年，他用相机记录下上海的老街区与普通人的日常，并通过著有《消失的上海》呼吁大家关注城市记忆与文化遗产的保护。在他看来，建筑不仅是钢筋水泥的组合，更是生活、文化与历史的延续。在本期节目中，我们将和 Hisham 一起聊聊什么是可持续城市，中国在快速发展中的成就与挑战，以及年轻一代的建筑学生如何在全球化的背景下思考未来。请跟随我们的对话，走进这位跨越文化与大洲的建筑师的人生与思考。这期节目和 Hisham Youssef 的对话非常精彩，内容也非常丰富，因为录制时长超过了1个半小时。为了让大家更加轻松地收听和消化，我们决定把节目分成上下部分分别发布，欢迎大家的关注。接下来您收听的是本次节目的第2部分，第1部分已经正式上线，也欢迎你们收听。接下来精彩继续。That's different from a mentor role in a large corporate or a kind of a client project, right? For me, it's like I always wanted to study architecture when I was younger. I played, my family played mahjong.
And you did the right thing.
No, my family played mahjong, and after they finished the mahjong session, I used the bricks. And I built, and my grandparents, my grandma especially, said that, you can study maybe civil engineering or architect. I said, okay, luckily I didn't pick the trade when I was younger. But, what I want to ask you, I believe that working as a mentor for a client project is very different from working as a professor for a studio project, because you can just stimulate the imagination of your student, right? Without any boundaries. That's what I assume.
Well, for the students, yes.
Crazy ideas, right?
You can, exactly. I always tell them there's no idea too crazy to think about, because if you don't do it now and you think outside of the box now, once you enter the real world, you're going to be kind of very narrow in how you approach design. So now is the time to experiment and fail. It's okay to fail.
Yeah.
Make mistakes, fail.
And correct.
And learn from them if you're smart.
Yeah.
And then you will have a much, I think, wider imagination of the possibilities and what can be done before you hit the real life, realities of budgets and zoning and, all kinds of things that
And
happens.
now with the digital tools, they can be crazier, right?
Yeah, that's a double-edged sword.
Yeah. you like the old-fashioned way of, drawing all the...
Well, there's a time for everything within the design process.
The classical way.
So early on, as you're kind of conceptualizing and thinking of a design, you need to ideate. You need to come up with many ideas.
Sketch and everything.
So there's nothing faster than sketching.
Yeah.
I'm not against using computers, but it's much faster to sketch by hand and coming up with many, many, many different ideas to explore, what am I really thinking about? Because you want to kind of see what's inside your head.
And then materialize it.
And then after that, maybe you're thinking of something that is really complex. This is where digital tools come in very handy. They can do very complex geometries that you could not build with a physical model or sketch it by hand. You can see
Twist.
it, you can go inside it, you can view it from the inside, you can do really amazing things. But during the thinking process in the beginning, nothing beats, just a pen and a piece of paper, and you sketch a lot.
Yeah, that's from zero to everything, right? You are literally, you're creating something on the papers.
So I do that, but then we get involved in different things. I drive them nuts, admittedly, because my way of thinking is just, you're free to do anything. So after we talk for like 15, 20 minutes.
Challenge. That's a challenge for Chinese students, because most of the students that I worked with, that I talk with, they are good students. So good students,
they're all very good.
They ask you, what are the restrictions? What are your goals? And what is the standardized answers? They first ask you that, and then they started to follow all those kind of doctrines and
And I tell them you can do anything you want.
And they're intimidated by that.
Yeah,
in some way.
I'm giving you all the freedom to do anything you want. Think of anything you want to do and do it, and we talk about it.
I understand your students. It's a challenge for them.
Yes, and I said there's nothing wrong.
Yeah.
There are some things that just don't work.
Yeah.
And even if they don't work today, maybe there will be
means something.
No, maybe there's a technology that can make it happen in 50 years.
Yes.
So why not, think conceptually about the possibilities, as long as we're exploring new design concepts in living, in learning. So I emphasize something called narrative design. So,
that's something new for me, narrative design.
Yeah. So, for example, you can tell somebody design a house, and you can give them the requirements.
Okay.
And say, the house will have 2 bedrooms and a living room and a kitchen and a bathroom.
It's a fact sheet.
Yeah, you give them the requirements because usually an architect needs to collect the requirements. But usually in real life, if you're going to design a house, you go and you interview the client and you ask them, tell me about yourself. What do you do? What are your interests? What would you like to have in your house? You don't go to the client and say, I'm going to give you a house with 2 bedrooms and a living room, and maybe you don't want that.
Yeah.
So it's a similar thing. So I don't ask the students to design a house. I've actually changed the program in the school.
You changed the
program. Curriculum, yes. So before
the entire curriculum, or the ones that you
the studio curriculum.
Okay, curriculum.
Because it used to be more technical.
Okay.
We are going to design a house. The house is going to have the following parts.
2-floor houses, etc., etc. Things like
and
that.
I said, to some extent, you can get any monkey. They can stack all these boxes together, and you end up with some design.
Yeah.
I'm more interested in
creating
a new type of space where somebody can live in. Maybe it's their first home. Maybe it's their second. Maybe it's a retreat. So if I design a house for a writer, a photographer, a poet, an athlete, everybody has something different.
You want to explore the uniqueness of each and single project.
For example, I told them, if you design one of these houses that you used to design before, or that the school used to issue before to design, I would fire you as an architect. Because I want you to ask me, what do you enjoy?
Yeah.
So 2 things I really enjoy: cooking and, showing my photography.
So you need a gallery wall.
So exactly. So I want a big, kind of open kitchen. And I don't need a living room necessarily. Yeah. That becomes the living room. There's a big counter where people can taste the food while I'm cooking. They can cook with me. The photographs are hanging on the wall. Is that a living room? Is that a kitchen? Is that a gallery?
It's everything.
It's
everything. What you need.
Exactly. Yeah. But that, when you talk about narrative design, then you start to think about, how do I live in this place? Designing a kindergarten. Everybody goes immediately to kindergarten. We need classrooms. We have a playground. But what if we design a new type of place where children go? And does it have to be a building? Is it distributed, for example, among different places in the city? How do children learn?
Yeah.
How do they socialize to know how to deal with other people, different ages? How do they play? How do they play together? What kind of space do they need?
Yeah.
That makes you, again, think about different ways.
I think to talk about kindergarten is very interesting. I want to use the word mingle. Because, for me, if I were to invest in a kindergarten, I would like to have a mingle place for young students or young children. Why is that? Because I find now modern Chinese students, they don't know how to small talk, and they do not know how to mingle. This is the challenge for me, even to work with some of the younger colleagues, because I think, I'm curious about them, but they have no curiosity about me. And, sometimes the relations or the engagement gets deeper because of these kind of, soft skills like mingling. So that's why, you talk about how young kids socialize, even for a kindergarten project. I think the Chinese schools are dull. For me, it's like, I hate Chinese standardized schools.
I mean, they're very well designed.
They
have all the technology that, somebody in the US or in France would drool over and all that.
But they did not function the way that people should be trained.
Exactly. So to me, I mean, I asked, one
Your
group
students,
of my
yeah.
students, we were sitting around in a circle like in the beginning, and I said, just, sit around, like sit next to me here.
Pop up ideas.
We're sitting around the table, but they wanted to sit all on one side and leave me on the other side. I said, no, sit next to me. We'll just sit around, and I want to just...
It's not only about, being intimidated by you or by the, authority. It's the way of their self-protection. My understanding is
No, but I asked them, I said, I want to hear about, where you come from, what you do, and all of this stuff. Of course, nobody would volunteer. So I said, okay, we're going to do it the authoritative way. I'm going to ask you over there a question. And then everybody has to prepare to say something. And then I said, why don't you talk? Because you can get up on the stage.
And you have a story to tell, the point is.
And you can, talk to 1,000 people sitting in front of you when you have to. But when I'm sitting one-on-one with you here and I'm trying to really understand who you are, where you come from, what you like and all that, you don't. And they said, because we don't do this in school.
Of course. It's not on the papers. It's not on the exams. So right, even the parents, they don't care that much. They said, okay, get good scores and that's enough. Go to good universities, that's enough. I hate that. When I was a young boy in northeastern part of China, I find that, I'm the weirdo of the community. Because I'm always talkative, I'm always curious about other people's things.
Oh my God!
And in northeastern part of the country, people just try to be standardized, right?
You're a rebel.
I'm not a rebel. I'm the outlier that everybody don't like. So sometimes I find it, I really want to, as an entrepreneur myself, I wanted to create a community or a work environment that is inclusive, that is friendly, that is not authoritative, that is result driven. It's basically get shit done and then let's go to party. Let's talk about other things. But I think now currently the overall environment, especially the next generation of Chinese kids, are not equipped or not educated or not trained to do so. So that creates me, as you mentioned about the kindergarten thing, is that I do believe that architects and architecture can serve the purpose. Because sometimes by designing, you can literally put people together.
Well, to me, it's a way of thinking. And not to talk necessarily about the kindergarten, but when you go back to narrative design. So yesterday was the first meeting we had to design...
For this semester.
To design what typically used to be a hotel.
Mm-hmm.
So hotel,
grand lobby,
exactly, lobby, the dining hall, the reception. I said no. So I didn't say hotel. I wrote the brief, which everybody uses in the school, about travel, exchange, local place, and not necessarily talking about a hotel or a resort or a retreat or it's a place for gathering. And I sat around and I said, do you understand the brief? Because if you tell me yes, I'm going to think you're completely brilliant.
Okay.
So I want you to say no, and then we can have a discussion around this. Okay. And they did. So they said, so we're designing a resort. And I said, did you read the word resort? And they said, no. Another person said, so this is long-term living?
Residential thing?
I said, did I say that? No. And then they said, but how do we design for culture? And I said, well, what is culture?
That's a challenging session to work with you.
Yeah. And so, but actually, they were probably the most talkative group I've had.
Over the years?
Over the years, in fact, yeah. I mean, it was surprising, and I don't know why.
That's
yesterday.
the sophomore year students.
Maybe I'm also kind of transformed in the way I'm talking to them, because it's always very frustrating for me to have a group discussion.
I understand you.
And I always have to be kind of the clown. I have to do all kinds of skits, to get them to talk or to laugh or But yesterday we had it was interesting in the sense that at least I could see where they are confused because they let me know that they are confused.
Yeah.
Whereas before
they're not afraid of sharing their being confused. Yeah.
Well, they were afraid, but they asked a question that showed that they are confused. And a couple of them were nodding their heads, and I said, you're nodding your head, but do you really understand everything I said? And they said, no. I said, so don't nod your head.
So you are literally, in this studio, you are creating a new genre of living, temporary living, right? Because you did not mention about it's a hospital. It's not a hotel. It's not a resort. It's
right. So one of the things, for example, and I used an example, like when going back again to the time of Quanzhou, when there used to be the caravans from China going to the Middle East, from the Middle East coming here, there was something called the caravanserai. And in there, like, you have camel caravans traveling through the desert, and there could be a scientist in there. There could be lots of people like taking silk from Suzhou, going to Istanbul, all kinds of things. And you get tired after traveling for 2 weeks in the desert. You stay in one of these places. This place becomes a really big meeting place. But what is it? Is it a hotel? It's a hotel for a few days because these guys need to get water and food and all that. But it's a meeting place. It's an intellectual place where people share stories because they meet somebody coming from Istanbul and somebody's coming from Kazakhstan.
And share intel about commercial intel, right?
Exactly. So they share stories. Maybe they write books. Maybe they have, what we call now like workshops or seminars, or they see how people cook, like from their different countries.
You cannot define that in a modern definition, right, of architecture.
We don't have...
It's a meeting place. It's just a meeting place, right?
Or places that are kind of retreats, where like sometimes, corporations would have a retreat and they do yoga, or they do like, personality things.
Talent show.
Right.
My worst fear is actually the talent show.
But something that is exactly like caravanserai, no. But you can take a component of that and you can say, okay, I want this to be whatever.
And public, for the society.
You define it. Yeah. You define what it is.
So it's a very challenging studio. I mean, the concept, as you mentioned about narrative designing, for me, it's like that. It's extremely demanding because you always need to work toward a direction you need to calibrate yourself into. But, while you're working, you might lose focus.
Well, one thing that you need to do, which again is something that I find that a lot of Chinese students don't do, is research. First, you have to understand, well, what is this that we're trying to do? What is the context? Who are the people who are going to use it? You have to really understand all these components first.
Yeah.
And then you can start to think about the inspiration. So when I asked this student, and I didn't mean it for her to answer me then, what is culture?
I cannot answer that question.
I know, and she was beginning to answer, and I said, I'm not expecting you to answer right now.
Think about it.
But think about it, because it means something also to different things to different people. I might think culture, it's the way people like eat and they behave and all that. It could be like some intangible, crafts and all kinds of things. It could be the people themselves. It's many different things, and you can't do everything.
Yeah.
You cannot develop culture, but you can pick on an aspect of it and you say, this is something I want to focus on for this particular area. Everybody's inspired by different things, for their design. So that's what I try to do.
What I envy about your lifestyle is actually you have a kind of a twin city lifestyle. Now you teach, when the semester starts, you have 1 day or 2 days in the city of Suzhou and working with young minds, and then you can use the rest of your week in Shanghai and even travel and explore and do your own projects and do your art. Tell me more about your art, because you're a photographer, right? You walk a lot, right? So you preserve part of the city, and especially I saw some of your pictures on Instagram is actually you have your focus on the people who live in the neighborhood, and some of the pictures are very capturing the moment. Maybe they're not, like supermodels posing for a big thing, but
for sure not.
But it's so authentic. It's so real.
Well, I mean, my photography started a long time ago. I mean, I grew up in Cairo, so let's say a similar context in the sense that there's an old part of the city, and I used to go, and walk through all the streets and explore and see all the crafts and the older people and all that. And I didn't take that many pictures back then. There were no digital cameras, And
that was expensive to film. Even
so it was expensive to film, but you observed, and it stays with you. And then I came to Shanghai in 2011, and I didn't realize what the big master plan for the city is, which was already done, And I started to see a few buildings getting demolished. So I would walk in and I take pictures, and I didn't know where you could go, what are the limitations. I'm still new in the city. And then I realized, no, this is like a big, massive
We
plan.
have an archive of histories, right? Because these kind of architectures are being demolished, sometimes being neglected.
I mean, a lot of these things are documented. I mean, you have two big universities here, and three, but
there's regulations for documentation as well.
You document a lot of these places,
but not in an artistic way as you did.
They are preserved, as far as the facade, is based on this, style, and it's this big and it's this tall and it has two windows and this family lived here. So you have all the information, but they're also being demolished and being, removed and being replaced.
Not in a way, I want to use the word erased. It's not even removed. It's kind of without your photography. Literally, if they are not have a footprint on the social media or being preserved somewhere curated somewhere at an exhibition hall, these entire, all the things are erased from the entire person.
Over time, with one generation gone, they will not be there. I mean, you will see a photograph and you say, this is what it looked like. But right now, there are people who still remember these streets. And it's funny because a friend, before he left Shanghai a few years ago, told me about this word, solastalgia.
Solastalgia.
It's a new word that means basically feeling homesick at home. Because you can walk down a street, you know exactly where you are.
You are so unfamiliar with everything.
You're so unfamiliar with a certain area
certain period.
that you know. I mean, you walk down a street, you know exactly what the street is, but nothing around you survives from what was there 2 or 3 years ago. So you feel like, I miss what was there. So you're feeling homesick walking around a city that you're very familiar with.
Yeah.
And this is what happens to me when I go again to the old city or some neighborhoods like Hongkou, for example, where they demolish so many things.
The Beiwaitan area.
And the Waitan area. Well, the Beitan, I guess.
Yeah.
And you go to
Xuhui, certain areas in Xuhui and Huangpu.
Xuhui, Yangpu as well.
Huangpu, yeah,
exactly. Huangpu is completely decimated, just south of the Suzhou Creek, near the People's Square. So I take pictures. In the beginning, I was taking pictures of people and street scenes. Now I try to get closer to individuals and talk to some people, and it's gut wrenching.
Yeah.
But as I do all of that, I'm going to say something that people are critical of what I say. They say, well, a lot of these people that you talk to, they don't want to live there anymore.
Yeah.
The buildings themselves, they don't have proper sanitation. They have all this
individual bathrooms.
Cooking. They don't have exactly, and that's very true. But there are ways to regenerate areas like that, and also many of them who are older folk, they miss the community because you send them to some of the bigger suburbs, outside of Shanghai.
They know nobody.
And you go up an elevator, you go down a corridor, and then you have a room or an apartment. Beautiful apartment, probably nice views, kitchen, bathroom, everything works. I mean, it's really nice. But you don't know anybody there. I mean, before, of course, it was the other extreme. You open your door, everybody's sitting out there. But there was a sense of community, which is lost.
For me, living in cities is like you are living isolated in a box of your own. And luckily now we have internet, we have TV, we have everything that we can interact with the rest of the world. And, for me, I have friends across the world that I can interact with them. But still, I feel lonely in my neighborhood.
Of course.
Because, we are only here because the developers created this. Although you have a view of your apartment, but you really don't know who you live with, right, in your neighborhood. And there is no such mechanism, or there is no one who volunteer or do it in a really honorable fashion as how to bring together the community. It's nothing spontaneous. It's more like, arranged meetings. And also, that's what I feared about that. When I was growing up in northeastern part of the country, I find that, I always have my childhood friends. But now the kids, they don't have their childhood friends because literally they don't know their neighbors. But I think for younger kids, they are easier to make friends with a stranger. But for adults, it's really difficult, right?
It's easier to make friends with a stranger online. but not in person.
Even hook up with a stranger online.
Yes, but not in person.
That's another issue is now I think the cities are not designed for dating. I think 20 years ago, 30 years ago, for my parents' generation, dating is basically visiting parks, go see the Bund, and just to have long walks and just to interact ideas. And now it's always a coffee shop, it's a bar, it's a boutique hall. And, that's why I think Chinese people, they don't know how to date. They don't want to enter marriage and they don't want to get kids.
But I think that's happening also elsewhere.
Everywhere.
It's happening everywhere. I mean, New York City, the last time I was there, I'm walking down the street, and it was the same thing as, walking on the street here. Everybody's,
having their headsets and everything.
And fixed on their mobile phone.
Yeah.
And you have to dodge all these people on the street, on the sidewalk. So
I enjoy Bryant Park, in Midtown. But Bryant Park is no longer the same as I was there 8 years ago. I think New York changed a lot. A lot of cities, I love digital worlds, but sometimes I try to refrain myself from that kind of lifestyle.
But again, there's a time for everything.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to get sucked into, scrolling through images and videos and all that, and you get lost and you lose track of time, and then we don't connect with other people.
So for your art project, are you going to curate new shows, or you want to share your work with a wider group of audience or a bigger group of audience?
Well,
are you working on that?
Right now, I'm taking just a lot of pictures before places are gone. Of course, as I look through my photography and the photography that I put in my photo book and the exhibition, I realize, I've also evolved in what I want to show and some of the things that I've taken pictures of. The one thing that I found interesting when I went to Shanxi was talking to a lot of the local craftspeople there.
The human stories, the real stories.
Exactly. Just, telling the story of the place and who they are. They've been there for generations.
And they don't have any intentions to move.
No,
they enjoy their life so much.
There was this couple who are making the lacquer. They're making lacquer. Yeah. So I met this couple who are the top in making lacquer, but not just the usual lacquer for furniture and stuff, but also innovating and creating new designs. And I wanted to talk to them because I'd met their son the day before, and I said, okay. He said, his parents were still alive.
I have a quick question. Did the son inherit the technique, or?
No, they have a very interesting story, so I'll tell you now. The father was, really incredible in sharing, his history. Of course, I got them started the same way you're doing with me, and I asked him all these questions about and how he met his wife. He basically came in as an intern in the factory, and he married the boss's daughter. And
that's a love story.
So he's the artist, and he does all this really amazing work, and she's the more traditional person. And then the son also went to Beijing for fine art education, and the son's wife went to, I think, in Hangzhou, and so they're all artists in some ways. So the son, of course, he's going to inherit the business, but he's also doing his own innovative kind of approach to things. And they all live there. They're very well known. They showed me all these catalogs of shows that they've had in Japan and
so proud of
Europe and all that. But they live in a tiny, tiny place by comparison to the options they have in China.
But they love their life there.
And they love their life. They live really well. They travel. They're well known in within the circle of what they do. And I'm interested in these stories because once these people, are gone, if nobody continues, what they're doing, then you don't have anything other than, again, the new developments. And I met several. There's the guy who makes bronze, pottery, paper cutting, Ms. Duan. And the guys who do the lacquerware and the shadow puppetry.
Okay.
Fascinating group of people.
I
Incredible.
like artists because artists can be friends instantly. It clicked, right? When you know the vibe is good, And it's kind of a friends that,
And these are the people that I met and I spoke with. But I'm also interested in, things like cooking. I mean, they have different techniques of creating things or making, I don't know,
using paste to do everything.
Yeah, I mean, and I think in a way that's also art.
Yeah,
I mean, how do you cook certain things?
Culinary art.
Yeah.
You are a good cook, right?
Well, in my mind, maybe I am. I love to cook.
Yeah, I like your preservation. For me, it's like doing podcast, especially, and this channel is, part of the programs that I do are English, and then the rest is in Mandarin. Mm-hmm. For me, it's like, I have so many amazing friends that have so great minds, and we exchange dialogues like this when we do coffees and even when we just pick up on the phone. But it was never preserved.
Yeah.
For me, it's like I want to create kind of an archive for these wonderful conversations. That's one. The other thing is I find myself as an artist, as a curator of all the shows that I curated throughout the time. And I find that, okay, this is something rewarding. And sometimes I find myself, ignorant of a lot of things, but it's always easy to ask a friend that, can you do a show with me that, my followers and me myself are super curious about things, about how you think of this. So this is why I started this show. And I find this dialogues on sustainability. Although we did not touch upon the sustainability, the word, but throughout our conversation, we talk a lot about being sustainable and how to create sustainable works.
Well, I mean, sustainability means different things. It's not just simply green building and green architecture. It's health, it's an economy.
It's human.
It's human, it's the culture itself. I mean, how do you sustain a place, right?
So we can find another time to talk about sustainability per se, because I think there are a lot of things about green architecture, etc., things like that. But finally, before we close, I have one more question. And you've been teaching in the city of Suzhou for 7 years already. How do you find Suzhou?
I like Suzhou. I just don't spend much time in the city.
Yeah,
because I go, I teach, and I come back. So occasionally I've ventured out, somebody says, let's have, lunch or dinner or something. And I'm also not in the old city itself because I'm in the new development, the industrial park, where a lot of universities are and like corporate, offices and all that. So it's not really Suzhou. It's generic China.
So I wanted to, how to define your relations with Suzhou. It's kind of you are a frequent visitor, or you find part of you have a strong, because you have a strong relations to the University of Suzhou, right? So what's your relations between?
I have to admit, I don't know it as much as I know Shanghai.
Yeah.
You can blindfold me and I can, walk outside anywhere in Shanghai.
And you can direct people through phones.
Oh, easily in Shanghai. In Suzhou, I know my way around, but I'm not really familiar, intimately.
How do you find Suzhou's preservation of its Asian towns from the rest of them? It's like, from what I see on Xiangmen, when you look at the Gate of the Orient or the Dongfang Zhimen to the east, it's more like La Défense.
Yeah, looking east, of course, but also even just next to Xiangmen, right there, there's also a new development that came up in the last
the shopping mall
few years,
thing,
the shopping mall,
villas.
Residential and all that. But it was an empty plot, at least since I've seen it. It was an empty plot. You can say, well, that's okay. There was nothing there. Demolishing things is what...
heartbreaking for you.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say I'm against it, that's what I would, question. But if there's nothing there, that's all. That's okay.
Yeah.
If a building is abandoned already, like a large building where people don't live, it's, like I saw some buildings in Shanxi, it's okay.
It's okay.
You
Leave it there.
You give it a new life, because there was nothing there. But to me, it's about displacing the communities and then doing, something that is generic. That's really kind of the main message, if I can summarize it. But I like Suzhou.
Yeah, I like Suzhou very much because I like the exquisite weight of beauty. It's like whenever I visited one of the gardens, classical gardens of Suzhou, I find that, I really envy the literatis living 300 years ago, 400 years ago. They can have dinner parties, they can have their tea sessions, they can have their poetry reciting competition sort of thing.
They could afford it, yeah.
Yeah, they can afford it.
Those the few who had that access, yeah.
And also, I think the prosperity of the region in the Yangtze Delta River, centered around Suzhou, I think that creates a very different atmosphere from the city and also the people who live in the city. Although now we know that Suzhou, I think, give and take, has over 12 million people. Maybe half of the local population are actually non-Suzhou residents.
It's
right?
one of the richest cities in China.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, because it's right next to Shanghai, it doesn't get its full kind of recognition.
It has been historically being regarded as the backyard of Shanghai.
Yeah, but it's...
And I like, very interesting, is like the Suzhou Creek in throughout the city center of Shanghai. It's called Suzhou Creek because it's the creek that connects people to Suzhou. And also from Suzhou, that's called Wusongjiang. So it's actually connecting Shanghai. So it's the same river with different names. And you know that it's like a twin city thing, and the community is so convenient. And for me, it's like, I spend 1/3 of my time in the city of Suzhou. I always find this is a city of balance. Because whenever I want to be very competitive, I want to go for business development, there is listed companies, there is always a need from the government, from the companies, etc. And whenever I just want to chill a little bit, I can always, buy a ticket or even enter some free gardens that I can just spend the rest of my afternoon and take pictures and share it on my Xiaohongshu, and then being praised by my friends.
So you have Xiaohongshu too.
I have Xiaohongshu. It's kind of, it's my Wikipedia now. Sometimes it's the Chinese version of Baidu. The reason why I think Xiaohongshu now excels is basically it's a lifestyle. It's also your archive of a lifestyle. And also, sometimes you don't trust the Google search results on Baidu or on Google, but you trust other people's experiences.
I've used it actually recently with good results to go to lesser known locations around
Hidden
Shanghai.
treasures, yeah.
Yes, and they were actually really good. The food recommendation, how to get there, and I thought, wow, this is incredible.
And it's like the Chinese version of Lonely Planet. There is always a crowded location when all the Xiaohongshu or the people, they follow the trend. But if you want to find somewhere unique, I think it's becoming a kind of archive where you can just go through what you want to search for, and then you just very interestingly come up. So for me, it's like living in China now, because you can enjoy all the convenience, the e-commerce, the logistics, the delivery, the food delivery, everything is so convenient. For me, it's like, explore China is very interesting, but I still really, really want to do just to have more in-depth interactions like what you did in Shanxi and also what you did in Dali. Is just to open my mind to a group of more friends and people that this is something that I wanted to do. And I think we should do a trip together.
Let's do it.
I mean Datong is one location, and also if you visited my hometown Jilin, it's also very interesting. And have you ever been to Jilin?
No.
Jilin is also on the list, and maybe we can find a way to get into Xinjiang and also Kashgar, and very interesting places to visit.
Done. Okay.
We can just start planning.
I'll hold you to it in front of all your
yes, of course,
all your listeners.
And I think this interaction and also the deep thinkings while we travel might be very interesting. And there is another project we are working on. Is actually we are working with a group of friends. We wanted to create a show. It's not a show, but basically it's kind of a recording of what we see and what we observe. It's actually to revisiting China, following the footsteps of Xu Xiake, the greatest traveler of China.
Yes.
Because Mr. Xu Xiake he was with a very wealthy family, but he traveled across China at the end of the Ming Dynasty, where literally across the country there was chaotic situation.
He started in Zhejiang.
No, he started in Jiangsu, in Jiangyin, part of Wuxi, south coast of the Yangtze River, Jiangyin. So do you know that on May the 19th, it is the China's Tourism Day? It marked the starting date for his travels.
The reason I said that is I was invited a few years ago to attend the celebration in Zhejiang near Ningbo.
He visited there, yeah.
I thought he started from there.
No, he visited there. He started and his last trip was to he visited Lijiang in.
Yes, so that was,
because he wanted to figure out the origin of the Yangtze River. And that was heroic for me.
Okay.
And also, I think, there is Marco Polo who traveled across the world.
Oh, that's different, yeah.
That's different. But for Xu Xiake himself, I really want to see what stayed the same after 400 years. Almost 400 years.
That would be interesting, actually, to retrace all the steps, to have the document, and then, see all the different places.
And share it maybe to the rest of the world, because we find it very interesting is that, we can work with kind of artists or architects like you, that we see the differences. And even this is a very interesting trip, because all the locations he visited, he left trace. And you can always compare notes, right? And also, I think this is a fun project that I want to do on the long run.
That sounds interesting, actually, because I only came to know about him, when I was invited there, and I was very fascinated as well.
He's an adventurer himself, and I think over 400 years of everything, China has changed. But I think, as you mentioned, some of parts of the China has never been changed. And some type of legacy. So this is something that I want to observe, and I want to think about it. And most importantly, I want to share it with my friends on the internet and for people who are curious about China.
This is why I found the visit to Shanxi fascinating, because many things survived. They've morphed into different ways of doing things, but fundamentally they're still the same.
Yeah. And sometimes I find that my relation with these kind of old structures, it's really touching and moving to me. And when I observe them, and I just resist myself not touching them, but I have the temptation of touching them. But no, it's not good. But I just observe, and I want to seize the moment. I want to memorize the moment. And
for me, it's the people and what they do.
Yeah.
So when I saw again all the artists I was telling you about, just
fascinating.
Even a pair of scissors cutting paper and seeing what you can do with it in the different forms and shapes, and
they're magicians.
Yes,
especially the paper cut artist.
It was incredible. I mean, what she was capable of doing, and her father also. She showed some of his work.
I think it'll be fun for us to travel together. I'm a very good travel buddy. That's one thing. The other thing is I always know my way around to try to figure out a non-Xiaohongshu type of locations.
Well, you guys heard it here, so we're going on a trip.
We're going on a trip.
Yeah.
And thank you so much, Hisham, for joining us. I think this
was fun, actually. I enjoyed it, yeah.
And actually, I think this kind of archive will serve as a very interesting thing. And maybe next time we can invite another friend of yours, or anything that we want to preserve some of our spontaneous reactions toward my questions.
But I think what you talked about, having a theme for the discussion, I think if we do this again, I hope we do it again. This time was kind of an introduction, kind of all over the place. I think having a theme and focusing on a few things, I think would be very interesting. And location and art,
everything. And I think a lot of people would like to have this type of English-friendly content when they want to explore China.
Great.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
I'm all for it. Thank you.
And thank you so much for staying with us for almost 1.5 hours. And thank you so much for following us. 可持续对话，让对话可持续。我是哲明，我们下次再见。